Okay, hi everybody. Here we are, another First Wednesday Art Talk before the First Wednesday Art Walk at Backstreet Art District. So we're in the back of Tim J. Leary Studios, and I'm excited tonight. I'm going to talk about my whole life here. And you think I'm kidding, but I'm not. So I start with my libation, which for all of these old memories, this has been a lot of fun to prepare for all these old memories. So as you know, or you may not know, I spent some 28 years or so working in the field of visual merchandising, doing store displays and windows. I like to think of myself as a window trimmer. That was my favorite part of the work, so cheers to window trimming. And it was something that I discovered sort of by accident. I was out of work looking for a job and showed up at a store, and they saw that I had been doing some drafting. And so they asked me to think about working in their display department. That was in, 19, and it's a very long time ago. And within the first few days of being in that job, I knew I had found a home. I knew I had found something that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life, I felt. Although I didn't admit that, I would say, oh, a really long time. At least then I knew you never know what's going to happen in life. So, so I did. So what I learned over those years in the beginning was that this was actually a relatively new profession as a profession. It really, even though there had been window displays and store displays over the centuries, it really wasn't until around the beginning of the 20th century that it became a job. Prior to that, the creative stock boy who wanted to stay after work and do a fancy window display was allowed to do so. How generous of the shop owners. And so after a while, though, there was an understanding. Manufacturing changed and the industry changed. There was steeper competition, so you needed to find ways to lure and attract the customers into your shop. So then over the years, it developed into a real storybook sort of thing, because the people who created the windows were artists, and that was the part of it that I really wanted to explore. So I have some books, as usual, to share. And the first one is this one, the Show Windows book, which was given to me as a gift at one of my jobs. And in here, there are some photographs of some really old displays, and I will show them to you and tell you what I think about them, I guess. And so, so let's do that. So this this first one I think is rather cool, because this was at, let's see what it says here, Henri Bendel, Benzo at B. Altman in New York. And this would have been put up on the back wall for the viewer to see the bird's eye view of a card game, which I thought is, very cool and clever. There's a lot of theater in this kind of work, or there was. It's not happening so much anymore. So, and I've already told you a little bit about the brief history. But it was very theatrical. There were the people who worked in visual merchandising, as it came to be known, were a unique brand of people. You needed to be a jack of all trades. And so we all learned how to do things that looked like we were experts on things when we often were not. So I'll continue through some of this as well. I saved this page for this window here because at some point in time I learned this is something that's done in situ, which means the dress is actually just fabric from a bolt that's pinned on the mannequin to make a dress. I love doing that. That was so much fun. And I had the opportunity to do freelance work at a fabric store that no longer exists in New Haven, Connecticut, Horowitz Brothers. And I would go every few weeks and change out the windows, and they had a very old dress forms. And I would do this sort of thing with the fabric that they wanted to show in their window displays. And then just some more of the same here on this side as well. These beautiful draping and the folds. It's something I learned early on, something I loved to do. The first store I worked in was actually a Montgomery Ward's. And so if you know what Montgomery Ward's is now, if it even exists anymore, you know, it was known for major appliances. But the store that I worked in Central Florida was a prototype. There was an attempt being made by the company to see if they couldn't move into the kind of retail that JCPenney was doing. So that's where I learned how to dress a mannequin and how to put a display together. So it was a little rough edge in some ways, yet they had the high level mannequins that other stores, like the finer stores would have, like a Lord & Taylor and that sort of thing. More draping of fabric. This tortured fabric here on this side is actually meant to be showing the turbans that the heads are wearing. I think it's probably an interesting idea gone too far, in my personal opinion. But I certainly understand the vision and can see it. The other thing that happens in window displays, and I've done this a bit over the years, if there's a major event going on in the world, if the store wants to do something that has to do with community awareness or whatever, in San Francisco, I can remember, when there would be big things going on, we would dedicate a window to whatever the event. When Jerry Garcia died, I think we did a window for him, and I can remember in New Haven at the Yale Co-op where I worked, there was a college, a university president who had become the baseball commissioner, and I was asked to do a memorial window for him. No merchandise for sale, but that's what stuff like this is about. So this is about, I think, was about war bonds actually in during World War II, and that one's a little more positive actually. This one is showing some devastation. Again, this is in New York, and I suppose if I put my right glasses on, I could tell you where that was, or does it even say? So there was often a lot of opportunity to do something that was called an institutional window. It wouldn't be merchandise, but it would be reaching out to the community. A little more draping over here. I guess I have a fond memory of doing that, that sort of thing. Here, there's a dress form over here, and it is dressed with fabric right off the bolt. Not cut even, just folded and draped around and pinned in place. I saved this page because these are Adele Rootstein mannequins. So in here, in this case, the mannequins are the product. And I would go, during the 80s, I would go to New York for the display shows, for the display markets. And I can remember going to the Adele Rootstein showroom. The mannequin showrooms were very fascinating. A woman all dressed in black walked over to me and pointed out which mannequin was her. these kinds of mannequins were modeled after fashion models. Particular women would be used as models, and then they could be put in different poses. When you would buy one, you could select everything: the skin tone, the eye color, the wigs, the position, shapes of the bodies, and they would all be put together for you. And that's something that Rootstein would do, and they were top of the line mannequins. I love this window because it's also a storytelling window. You have the woman in the fur coat on this side, and then the fox over here. So let's guess that that's a fox fur coat. And this would have extended over at least 2 large window displays. Those kinds of stories were always fun to do. Here's a little homage. If that wasn't done in the 80s, I'll eat my shirt. Clever way of doing it by taking construction paper that matched the patterns on the shirts, cutting out the patterns, and having them fall and drip all over the floor of the window. Really cool. I can't see here where it says Carson Perry Scott in Chicago. So very clever window display. And then I'm showing this because sometimes window displays there would be an opportunity to get a local artist to show their work. So in this case, you have local graffiti artists in Bergdorf Goodman in New York. So they have the graffiti artists that did fake subway walls on the window. So the point of showing all of this is that this kind of storytelling, which was a big deal in the cities in particular, has kind of died off. And it's a case of the accountants getting control over the creative people, because there's not a good way to prove that the display is selling merchandise, even though I've always been convinced it did. But I also eventually began to believe that it wasn't a good idea to find out anyway, because then the corporate structure would want to dictate more about the windows. I always liked the autonomy that I had in doing that. So another thing I saw, Simon Doonan, who was the visual director at Barney's in New York, did an incredible series of windows in the late 80s. And when I was at Market one year, one December, all the rage, all the buzz was about the windows that he had done. And so I went to see them. And what he had done, again, no merchandise. He had done sort of a caricatures of celebrities, often New York celebrities, but you have also Madonna. Here was a window about Madonna. And he encircled the entire store in Manhattan on the streets with these windows. They were so popular, he did the same thing 2 years in a row. This is Tammy Faye Baker. They're probably my favorite one because her Christmas tree is a mascara brush, and her television has Jim Baker behind bars on the screen. Another nod to Madonna, who was a very glamorous girl. Let's see. I had a couple others saved if I can find them now. They just slipped. But it was quite a thing. But these things don't happen very often. I thought I had saved this page. Andy Warhol was known as someone who did window displays in New York before he opened his factory. And I often wondered, was he doing the displays or was he using the displays to exhibit his artwork? And I think both of them are legitimate things to do. but not necessarily the same thing, because I carried, mannequins down the street and did a lot of physical labor involved, which is fine. I loved it. So the question of the day is, how has this earlier career, affected the kind of artwork that I'm doing now? So I've always thought of myself as an artist. I always liked the idea that visual merchandisers were artists, and I always thought of it that way. I felt that I was doing stage sets, I was doing 3D collages, dioramas, sure, with merchandise in them, but often I was able to let my imagination run wild, as long as I kept my work within the reputation of the company for which I was working. I felt my job was to exhibit or display their style and who they were to the community, but to make it more fun and to challenge people. We sometimes thought of ourselves as educators in terms of fashion and how do you put things together. In the 70s, women were wearing pants and skirts together. Well, there was a way to do it that was proper, not just any pair of pants and not just every skirt. So we would have the job of figuring that out. So I went through all of my stuff and I found pictures. I don't know how well you'll be able to see these, but this was a display I did inside a store, inside Robinsons of Florida. Can you see it on the thing? It's putting on the Ritz. The mannequin is on a swing on the moon. Very 70s, very disco. Not that I was a disco boy at all. This is, felt that I had become good at the home store and the men's displays, which you'll see in a little bit. After that period of time working there, I found myself working in New Haven, Connecticut at the Yale Co-op. Yale Co-op is no longer in existence, but there was an Ivy League tradition of cooperative stores. There was an actual co-op that existed, and it supported this store, which served the Yale community. So it served the faculty and staff as well as the students. They had a huge textbook business. They were the main textbook seller in New Haven, and but they also had what they used to claim was the largest bookstore between New York and Boston, which I'm sure actually was accurate. But a big bookstore, and we would get authors would come in there from time to time. I even got to meet Richard Avedon as a result of that. And so they had some fashion departments. Not really sure which thing I should show first. Let me pick out a couple of things. I had 4 major windows that I would do. Here we go. This is the 4. This is a set of 4. This was kind of based on the props that I got. And judging by what this mannequin is wearing, I would say this is spring or summer. The one nice thing for me was that there was a movie theater down the street, showed almost exclusively foreign movies, and we would leave our windows lit up into the night. I didn't mean to do that. And so people could come down to Broadway, have a little something to eat, look at the windows, and go see their movie. And I understand that people did that. So I have a couple of more artsy windows to show. Yay, it didn't fall. This one was one of my favorite menswear displays with the wired tie on the men's form. Another time I decided to use a painter's palette to show colors of solid ties in a display. Another time we had t-shirts with art, with famous art on them. In the springtime one year, right before Easter, I did a hat display. As I look back at these, some of these do have a flavor of those old windows. These are some of my favorite men's displays here. This one here on the top is Patagonia. But I thought it was fun to have the shirts coming out of the basket. And this one is a little homage to Jackson Pollock. I want to move on from that a little bit to San Francisco. Well, before I do that, I have this fun picture. This is a picture that was in the New Haven Register. An article was written about the local folks who did window displays. I was interviewed for the project, and the newspaper photographer came. Note the color of my hair, not the same as today. No.
Black and white.
It's black and white. Well, but it's dark. That's the thing. It's dark. Anyway, sometime after that, I found myself in San Francisco, and I was at Emporium on Market Street. And I did some fun stuff there. Some shadow box windows for Lagerfeld. I made the frames myself. This was a men's cologne display. So many pictures of the Yale Co-op. And I have a picture, if Teresa is listening, I don't know if she's there or not, but this is Desi Dela. She commented, Desi Dela, at Emporium on Market Street, perfume companies would, or cosmetic companies rather, would provide swag for the window displays. And in this case, tons and tons of satin was sent to the store, and we used it to put together these elaborate displays, these huge window displays to sell perfume. That was quite a thing. And let's see what else I've got here. These are the final Christmas displays we did there right before the store was closed and went out of business. This was a great job because there were such characters that worked in that department. There were some 15 people that worked in there. Every one of them was unique and had their own unique style. And Teresa, if you're listening, she did caricature sketches of each of us, so this was mine. So, of course, that's exactly what my physique was like back in the day. So, But if the question is, if my question has to do with what influence did this have on the work that I'm doing now, yesterday, and if any of you saw my Facebook post for this, I put together some pictures, which I'm not able to show you because I don't, they're on some device somewhere, where I took pictures of window displays and placed them in front of the current artwork. And it was very interesting to me to see that there are some differences and there are some similarities. My color palettes have remained consistent. I can remember in the 80s, Stu and I bought a house, and we did it in Florida in seafoam green and peach colors, pale peach. Then later on we did it similar colors but darker tones. So that's a little bit what I see in my work, is that I continue to get bolder in the color choices and the color combinations. I've always loved working with colors. You know, I don't have a favorite color, but I have certain favorite, you know, combinations of color. They work together in certain ways. You know, as in something like this, these darker colors pop out in front of the yellow. So that's what I feel in colors I'm doing. In textures, adding the wood to paintings like on the bottom there, and the one that I'm sitting near, if you get there. Adding those wood textures is, to me, I guess, feels like the kind of woodworking I did in a lot of cases. At the co-op and back at Robinson's, even in Emporium, I built my own props. I would cut things out of foam core. I was quite a master. And I had an awful lot of fun doing that, building things, imagining things, and making displays out of them. So I do think that there is, obviously, in one's life, there are themes that run through your life, right? And so, so those are some of the themes that run through my thing, through my career. And I would say that also in putting these pictures on top of these paintings and photographing them, I would say that the work has matured. And that's a really nice thing to see. And I continue to have fun doing that. It's been great fun for me. And I'm, you know, so after my revelry of the last few days, going through this old, this hornet's nest of pictures, I can say that I made a good choice in doing this and choosing this as a line of work. So, and that it has given me a great foundation to do the kind of work that I'm doing now, and that at this stage in my life, I'm getting to do whatever I'm drawn to do, which feels really terrific. I've always enjoyed that autonomy in all of my work, and you know, it helps me feel like I'm expressing myself. So I think that's my message for today, is keep at it. Keep doing it, and do the thing that's meaningful in your life. So thank you for listening to my my reminiscences and looking at my pictures. And I hope that if you're in Palm Springs, you'll come and visit us. We're about to open the door and be open for a little while, and have our art walk tonight. So it's good to be in Back Street Art District. And thank you very much. Good night.